this becomes one of those kind of sticky spots where we have to be cautious. So what that means for us is that we have to be a little careful when we bet here. We cannot bet everything in our range here. We have to be a little more selective. Because our opponent has so much of those middling pairs, we kind of are incentivized to work in some things like check raises to our range. Ace 10 of diamonds is actually a pretty good combo to do that sometimes with. And if you're up against opponents that are always going to bet every single one of those pairs when you check on this board, then it's really good to start working in lots of check raises, both with value and as bluffs. You can take lots of different types of things like overs with one club, maybe some backdoor flush draws, maybe some actual flop club draws here, and put those into check raise, and you really punish someone who's betting too frequently with those, kind of mid pairs, as well as just like if they're going to stab with their overcards, you really make a, kind of extra money. That's kind of how I decide to dice up my range here. I do choose bet this time around. I bet a little less than half pot, which I think is fine. I think like about a 40 to 50% pot sizing is pretty good for this board. That's just an okay sizing. We don't want to go too big because our range kind of can't support it. We kind of struggle to get too much value, especially when we have hands like we have here, and we're gonna have an okay amount of these. So because of that, we don't want to drive out everything that's, every pair of sevens and sixes, but we do want to kind of start pressuring some of those, as well as those things like ace queen of diamonds. And I know I keep mentioning hands that when we have the ace of diamonds our opponent can't have, but it's good to think about the entirety of ranges here and not just, the hand that you have. So bet about 40% pot, or a little less than half pot, and our opponent calls. We get the three of spades. Not the best card in the world. Our opponent will have ace 5 sometimes, maybe 6-5 sometimes as well. But beyond that, it's not a terribly, connecting card. The one thing that we do have to be concerned about here is that all of our opponent's flop calls with their ace X hands now have a straight draw to go with them. And what that means is that there's a lot of hands in their range have picked up equity. And again, we just need to be cautious about the types of hands we decide to bluff with here. I think betting most of your flush draws and stuff like that is still fine. But we can't just be kind of haphazardly betting with like any two overcards to this board here just to pressure pocket sevens, because we're gonna get called by too many ace queen combos because they just have really good equity, especially when they have the added gutter. Ace 10, again, you can make a case for working this into a check shove range here too. But again, I don't think our opponent is as incentivized to bet here now as they would be on the flop. So I think that mostly just betting, we do need protection. Mostly just betting this is going to be good. I bet about 2/3 pot here, which I think is a fine sizing. You can make a case for going maybe a little bit bigger. I don't think I'd go too much smaller here, but something in this ballpark is fine. And our opponent again calls.